So it turns out skills might not be the best approach to give additional context to your agents, and you might actually have more luck going back to the agents.md file. This was actually the surprising result that Vercel found when they were testing the best method to provide coding agents with the Next.js documentation. So let's just jump straight in and break down what happened and why, and what this teaches us about using coding agents effectively. So as I said, Vercel's goal here was to provide a coding agent with additional context, in this case the Next.js documentation, so that when you're using the agent and writing Next.js, it knows of all of the new APIs, as some of them might not be in the training data yet, or even the opposite. It might be an older version of Next.js and you want to make sure it's using only the methods available in that version. They wanted a system of version-matched documentation that the agent could use. So to do that, they tested two common approaches. First, we have our skills. These have been quite popular lately, with loads of frameworks and tools and loads more releasing them, and ironically, Vercel are one of the ones helping make this popular with their skills CLI and their skills repository. Highly recommend you check them out. Now, if you don't know what skills are, they're actually just an open standard from Anthropic, and they're just modular bundles of instructions, scripts, and context that an agent can load on demand to perform tasks more accurately. But that's the crucial detail. It's entirely up to the agent to decide when to load this information, and that part seems to be their current downfall. When Vercel ran their evals, they actually found that 56% of the time, the skill was never invoked. The agent just decided not to use it, and surprisingly, providing the agent with the skill actually gave it 0 improvement in the evals compared to an agent that didn't have the skill. And even more surprisingly, they actually found the skill might have a negative effect. It sometimes performed worse than the baseline when the skill wasn't used, which suggests that an unused skill might introduce some noise or distraction. So to fix this, they did actually try, specifically in the prompt, saying please use this skill. And that did help. It did increase the skill trigger rate to 95%, and it boosted the eval pass rate to 79%, but it also came with its own problems. They actually discovered that different wordings produced drastically different results. For example, if you just said you must use the skill, it did that, but then it would skip the project context. So you had to say use both the skill and the project context. And Vercel just didn't like the fragility of this system, stating that if small wording tweaks produce large behavioral swings, the approach feels brittle for production use. So they needed a more reliable solution, perhaps one where the agent doesn't have to actually make that decision itself. So this is when they tried the agents.md file. Now, this is actually an open format that loads of agents have used, and if you're a Claude fan, this is the exact same as the Claude MD. It's used to provide instructions to coding agents that are always included in the system prompt, so unlike skills, the agent is not in charge of deciding to fetch the information, it has it there already in its system prompt. But this could also create a problem of its own, context bloat. This is where when your context grows, your output gets worse. So you don't want to put the entire Next.js documentation into the agents.md file. So how do you do it? Well, to counteract this, Vercel actually just used a documentation index in the agents.md. It's simply just a list of the file paths to the individual documentation files within your file system. Then the other crucial piece was just adding an instruction saying, prefer retrieval-led reasoning over pre-training-led reasoning for any Next.js tasks. Now personally, when I read this, I thought this would just lead to similar results as skills, as it still has to go off and actually fetch the file to read that documentation. But when they tested this on their evals, the agent scored 100% on all of them and got perfect scores on the build, lint, and test evals. So it is significantly more reliable and accurate than skills. It's kind of classic software engineering. It's where the dumber, simpler approach turns out to be the best one all along, and you don't have to over-engineer anything. But why is this the case? Why is the agents file better than skills? Well, this is actually pretty hard to tell. AI is a bit of a black box, but Vercel speculates this comes down to 3 factors, and all of them are based around decision making. When you have that agents file, there is no decision point for the agent. We're telling it right at the start in the system prompt to use the documentation and exactly where each file is. So it makes the knowledge persistent context instead of having it on demand and letting the model decide whether it should use it or not. It's already there in the reasoning since we provided it in the system prompt. But this also doesn't mean that skills are completely useless. In fact, Vercel found that they actually complement each other. They said that skills work better for explicit user-triggered workflows, like saying upgrade my Next.js version, migrate to the app router, or apply some framework best practices. But then if you want that general framework knowledge within your coding agent, that passive context with the agents.md is going to outperform skills, especially with today's models. I'm sure in the future, models will be optimized for that skill-based retrieval workflow, but we're not there yet. For now, Vercel's recommendations, especially for framework authors or those of you that are actually going to be writing skills or the AGENTS.md, they say don't wait for the skills to improve, compress your context as much as possible, design for retrieval, not memory, and most importantly, always test everything with evals. And if you're just a user of these files, Vercel is actually providing a tool to download the documentation and the pre-built agents.md file for your specific version of Next.js, so you can take advantage of this new approach straight away. I'm pretty curious if other tools are going to take this approach as well, and I'm also curious what you think about this. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of agents and skills, and while you're there, subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.